guys, we're gonna do just an opinionated. I need to stress to you guys, opinionated top 5 players in the league, because we do have a lot of people that like to go and get over analytical on us and shit for no reason. So Kyle, Dawson, and I are going to give our personal opinion of who our top 5 players in the NBA are. I will go first in no particular order. I know I've kind of varied back and forth with it. My top 5 players are LeBron James, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Steph Curry, and Damian Lillard. Um, I mean, I want to elaborate on it, but I know that my elaboration is going to take a long time because I don't shut the fuck up. So I'm going to pass it along to you guys. Dawson, you're the guest. What do you got for us, man?
Well, at one, I got the king, the washed king, the 36-year-old king, LeBron James. He's averaging 25, 7, and 7. The only knock I have on him right now this season, now granted he is injured, but it's his second lowest PER year, player efficiency rating, since his rookie season, and they're sitting at 4th, I believe, in the conference standings. So it's not. I mean, they're not in any type of jeopardy of I don't think missing the playoffs with him being gone. But I saw that and I was like that just it's not good to see that, but it's also like just shows like how great he's been almost like in that span of time from his rookie season to what is he 36 now.
It's
So it's
insane.
like
it's crazy.
It's really cool to see, and the numbers that his PER was through those years is pretty high too. So that was cool to see. I put on here under the maybe section I have, it says will the injury stunt the Lakers top seed push for the second half of the season. That's something we're going to find out, obviously, and depending on how long he's out. I know it said indefinitely on the thing I saw. I didn't see a number for how long he was going to be out, but I mean, that's just somebody you don't want anybody else on your team come playoff time, starting on your court. So I mean, it's LeBron. I mean, he's made the finals every year. He's been healthy since 2011. Led the league in assists last year. I mean, as an old guy, you're witnessing greatness. I used to hate him in Miami, and then I just realized that you got to appreciate what he's done for the game, and it's just something I don't think we'll see for a long time. At least while I'm alive, I don't think I'll see anything like it again. But with that being said, he'd be my number one. I got James Harden, averaging 25, 11, and 8. Going into the season, starting with Houston, I kind of knew that he was not going to be there, even after they got John and a couple other pieces. I was just his attitude and him not even showing up at the beginning. It was just kind of like a big smack in the face to his teammates and the organization. But with him getting traded to the Nets, I was not sure how that was going to go with KD, Kyrie. But I was excited. Don't get me wrong, to see those 3 guys play together. And I think we've kind of seen that it's gonna work in a sense. When I say in a sense, I mean they got to learn how to play defense. But that offense is scary, man. That's if those guys get cooking, it's gonna be a long night for you, especially if you're not making buckets on the other end of the floor. And another thing with that whole situation is like, even if one of those guys are injured, you more than likely, if the other 2 are healthy, I mean, you still got a solid offense throughout those 4 quarters. You got to play them. So now I wouldn't say they're deep. Now I like Blake Griffin. I like seeing him back on a team that's going to play for a deep playoff run. So I'm excited to see what he can do at his age. And I think that's really all I had. I mean, he's shooting 46% from the field, 36 from the 3. I already said the defense stuff. So then I guess moving on, third would be Luka Doncic, averaging 29, 8, 9, almost damn near a triple double. He's shooting almost 50%. I think it was like 48 or 49% from the field, 36 from the three. I was watching a couple of his highlights from this season, and I just noticed that, and I've noticed it before, but was just impressive. The things I was seeing was the vision he has at such a young age on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, it like the no look passes, and sometimes I feel like he's looking down. And even if he is, I feel like he's looking, like he's using his peripheral
That way,
vision. He's like
yes,
looking
yes,
around,
yes.
Yeah.
and it's cool to see that when they get like a close up shot of him, because you can just see the gears turning in his head. What else? He does a good job of following his shots inside of the 3-point line. He goes and gets boards on the offensive side of the ball, which they don't. I feel like they don't really teach that anymore, or that's not like a big thing that they stress anymore, is following your shots. But he does a good job of getting his own boards inside the 3-point line, closer to the paint area, obviously. He's great with his back to the basket. I love seeing guards, especially point guards, being able to put a nice little post move together, a couple little fakes, up and unders to the basket. He's a mastermind at that. It's just a good, promising future for him and the Mavs organization if they can keep him happy and they can keep winning.
It'd be nice.
I'm sure me and Kev could talk about the whole Mavs organization and what he thinks they should do for the future, but would probably take another whole 3 hours, so we won't even get into that.
You don't want to start that.
But next on my list, I got KD, averaging 29, 7 and 5, shooting 52 from the three, 43 from the 52 from the field, 43 from the three. Sorry about that.
43. It's still nuts.
Yeah, sorry.
It's crazy.
43%. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I mean, he's absolutely deadly from anywhere on the floor. I mean, that's kind of given. He runs the pick and roll on a level that I mean, it's been a while since I've seen someone run a pick and roll like he can. Just his length adds another element to that pick and roll game, because especially with DeAndre, or even if they get Blake a little more involved on the pick and roll, being able to have that option to pull it up, take it to the rack, or dish it off for a lob to somebody. I mean, you're not blocking a pass from 4 feet above you. Like you're not doing that. So, I mean, that element, I think he has one of the most explosive triple threat escape packages I've ever seen. When he has the ball at the top of the key or on one of the wings, and he's either pass, dribble, or shoot, it's like once he realizes which one he's doing, it's like that, and whether it's a pass or a shot or a dribble, it's lightning quick, and it's someone with that size should not be able to handle the ball like he does, shoot the ball like he does, sometimes even pass the ball like he does. He's not a terrible passer. And that's just another, like I said, with Harden, if one of those guys are injured, you still got those 2 other guys, to fall back on. So that would be my number 4 would be KD, and especially coming off an injury, Achilles. I think even before the Achilles injury, even before, what was the injury right before he injured? Was it Achilles twice?
No, he had the Achilles in the finals.
Well, he had a calf issue going into that finals.
Calf issue. Yeah, I knew it was the calf issue.
Yeah.
Even before all that, I think you can consider him as the number 2. And with his play, I mean, he's looking like he might be able to get back up there. But 5, I got same as you, Kev. I got Lillard, averaging 34 and 7, 30 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists. Shooting 45% from the field, 37 from the three. I mean, the man's got unlimited range with the ball in his hands at Dame time. You know what time it is. I think my favorite thing about him is his will to win, and on the court, he'll do whatever it takes to will his team to wins. If he is feeling it that night, he's gonna let you know, hey, give me the rock, I'm gonna shoot it, I'm gonna score the ball, I'm gonna get us back in this game, or I'm gonna keep our lead, whatever the case is. He's gonna do whatever it is for the team that's gonna get them the win, and whether you like it or not. he's gonna get it done. And he's quick, agile. He'll have you stumbling at the top of the key, and the next minute he'll be rising up on your center that you'll see later on TV. He's a fantastic finisher at the rim with or without contact. That's going back to the quick and agile thing I just said. He's one of those swifts up and under, give you the type deal around the basket. So he's dangerous, gifted passer. I consider him one of the better ball handlers in the league with his speed. It gets dangerous for some of these defenders when he runs a pick and roll really well too, but he also can just pull up from wherever. So, but I also think him and CJ are one of the most underrated duos. I don't know if that's really a hot take anymore, but I've thought that for a while, at least for the last 2-3 years since they've kind of come into their own in Portland. I'd like to see them do something out there, get another piece, and see what they can do. 'Cause I think they could make a nice little playoff run. I mean, they did last year, kind of. I mean, they ran into the Lakers, but it was a good series.
I thought so.
Yeah, those would be my top 5, right now at least.
And I guess for me, I'm gonna do my best to follow that up. All right, let me break it down to how I have it. So number 1, I agree with both of you guys. I have LeBron James. Number 2, I have KD. Number 3, I have Steph Curry. Number 4, I have James Harden. And number 5, I have Nikola Jokic. So I'll start with LeBron since he's number 1. LeBron's been probably the best player for over a decade. The man went to pretty much every single finals from beginning of 2010 to pretty much now, outside of maybe 1 or 2 finals. That's it. So he is really the only player of this generation that has owned an extensive period of time where it's a trip to the finals or the season is just an utter failure. So granted, he did have a tough road, especially during some of those Cleveland years where he had to go up against Golden State, but he was a huge factor in getting one of those championships when they came back from 3-1 in the 2016 finals. And probably in his NBA career, that's probably his single most important achievement to him. I don't think he cares about the MVPs. I don't think he cares about any of the Offensive Player of the Year awards, scoring titles. I think that one championship meant the world to him. And without that, I think his career, in his eyes, would probably be a disappointment just because he wasn't able to bring that one championship home for Cleveland. But he was able to. Now he's continuing his level of dominance into the 2020s, which is just insane for somebody who's 36 years old. And you look at this year in particular, he's averaging 25 points a game. He's been hurt dealing with that high ankle sprain that he suffered last week. And look at the result that it has had on the Lakers. The Lakers are probably going to lose probably 80% of the games that they play in when LeBron's not on the court, just because the impact that he brings to that team, and not only just the Lakers, just every team that he's been on, there's nowhere where they can replicate that type of production from anybody else on the court outside of when he's on the court. So I've never seen in this generation somebody that important to their team outside of LeBron James. And this year in particular, it's proving itself again. So I'll move on to number 2 with Kevin Durant. With Kevin Durant, he is probably one of the most just consistent best players in the league for probably the last decade. If you take LeBron out of the league, just for the sake of the argument, Kevin Durant would probably be the best player since 2012 when he was back on OKC, when they were able to get to the finals where they ended up playing Miami and LeBron and D Wade. It's just, I've said it time and time again, his jumper is the silkiest shot I've ever seen. And it's just, I don't care if he's shooting it from 30 feet, 35 feet, hell, even 40 feet. I don't even think it's a bad shot. If he's double covered and he's able to get just the tiniest bit of separation, I don't think it's a bad shot, just because his jump shot is that pure And mind you, he's not like the greatest ball handler. His ball handling skills probably aren't his primary asset to his game. But the fact that he could separate at ease, could get to the lane, could kick it out if need be, he's just greatness personified. Kind of similar to LeBron. It's just LeBron's had that level of dominance to the game of basketball for the last decade. So that's why I got KD in second. You take LeBron out of the argument, yeah, KD would probably be the best player in the league. It doesn't matter which team he's been on, whether it's on OKC, Golden State, and now Brooklyn. He's just been cooking wherever he goes. He could average 30 in his sleep like it's nothing. So
like Stephen A. Smith says all the time.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's one of the greatest shooters I've ever seen. So I'll transition to my number 3 pick. It's Steph Curry. Steph Curry is probably the one player that has had the biggest impact to the league in the last 25 years outside of Michael Jordan. His ability to knock down 3-point shots like nothing and make it clockwork. That's the biggest impact to the game that he's brought. And mind you, they had a great run from 2014 to the last year that they had KD, which I believe was 2019. They got 3 titles out of it, went to 5 straight finals. And it was in large part due to the success of what Steph Curry was able to bring on the court day in and day out, just from a shooting perspective. Granted, he's not the greatest defender, and he is a liability to a certain extent on that side of the ball. But just the wizardry of what he can do with the basketball, his handles are pretty much arguably the best in the game outside of maybe Kyrie Irving. And the fact that he could just make those step back jumpers from 30, possibly even 35 feet look easy and routine, it's just nuts to me. And mind you, he is probably single-handedly these next and up and coming point guards in the league are replicating what Steph did for years when Golden State was going on their run in the middle of the 2010s. When you look at players like Trae Young, Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, like all of these guys have this crazy step back game. And in large part, that's in part to what Steph brought to the game. Just his ability to knock down those jumpers, to knock down those just pretty floaters when he gets into the lane. He's a great player. And I've always thought that for this generation, he's had the biggest impact compared to anybody else that we'll probably see. So number 4, I've got James Harden. James Harden, the reason why I have him at 4 is he is probably the most prolific scorer that this generation has to offer. He's been so consistent from the time that he was in Houston. Mind you, he could go out there and average 30 points like it's nothing, very similar to what Kevin Durant could do. I think the one thing that people have an issue with is his style and how he gets those points, because he drives to the lane, gets those fouls, but he goes to the free throw line and knocks down those shots. And mind you, Houston did not get to the finals when James Harden was there, but he was one of the reasons why they got very close to. You take James Harden away from that Houston team, look at them now. They can't even go 2 months without winning a game. You lose 20 straight games. Mind you, if James Harden was on that team, that's probably a playoff team at this point. And now they're pretty much fighting the Timberwolves for the worst record in the Western Conference and the NBA to a larger extent. So you look at what he's doing this year. He's transitioned really well from the role that he was playing with in Houston, now going to Brooklyn. The way that he's able to facilitate, get his teammates involved, I love what he's doing for Brooklyn. I didn't like the way that he kind of forced his way out of Houston, but he has backed up his play in Brooklyn, and he's probably the reason why that Brooklyn is really fighting for that number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference right now, because KD and Kyrie have been out of the lineup consistently throughout the season. So James has had to take the responsibility of carrying some of the weight for Brooklyn, and they are still succeeding at a very high level. And they could end up being the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference when it's all said and done by the end of the season. So when I look at James, though, like I said, he is just a prolific scorer. Mind you, there are some great scorers in this league, like whether it was Carmelo back in the day, Bradley Beal now, even Damian Lillard. It's just I don't think that they could score at the clip that James Harden was, especially when he was in Houston. He had a green light to go out and shoot the ball all day, and he scored at will. So I got to give him credit for that. He may not be the most efficient player, but his ability to score and the ways that he does it, I got to give respect to that. So I have him at number 4. And at number 5, this is probably going to be, I would say, probably the most controversial one, just because I have a big man here. But I got Nikola Jokic. The reason why I have Nikola Jokic is because I truly believe that Nikola Jokic should be the poster boy of what centers in the league are going to be for the next 10 to 15 years. There was a stretch of time where it seemed like the 5 spot on NBA teams seemed obsolete because they were pretty much beholden to dominating down low and getting rebounds. Now you're seeing the evolution of the 5 spot, and Nikola Jokic is really the one leading the way. His ability to score, his ability to rebound, and his ability to facilitate with assists is, for a big man, is unlike anything that I've seen. His offensive skills is the reason why Denver is a playoff team, because when you look at what's happened with Denver this year, they've had a lot of COVID issues. They've had some injuries that they've had to deal with. And Jokic is just going out there and balling on a consistent level. I remember I was watching one of these games just a couple of days ago where they had a stat of all the categories that Nikola Jokic was leading the way in. It was, I mean, you want to talk about points, you want to talk about rebounds, assists, PER, plus minus. Granted, there were probably 5 or 6 more categories that he was leading in just for Denver. Like, the impact of him to the team that Denver has is undeniable. And he to me is the guy that is leading the way for centers and their ability to be a consistent jump shooter, not only just from the mid-range, but from the 3-point as well. He's averaging over 40% behind the 3 line this year, which is nuts for a big man. Granted, he's not taking probably the volume of shots to somebody like Steph Curry, Trae Young, Kevin Durant. But the fact that you're getting that level of production from the 5 spot on your team behind the 3-point line, that is just crazy to me. And it is kind of emblematic of the transition that you've seen from players like Dwight Howard, where they were great down low, but they can't really shoot a mid-range jump shot or even a 3-point shot. Nikola Jokic is really the antithesis of somebody like Dwight Howard, where his versatility is unmatched at that position. So you just look at Jokic. Granted, Denver doesn't really have the best record in the Western Conference. They're still a playoff team. But the reason why they're still a viable and competitive team in the Western Conference is simply because of what Jokic is able to do day in and day out. And the analytics side of things, because the analytic bros got on me for not calling him the MVP a couple weeks ago, or at least a front runner for it. But analytically speaking, this dude is a monster. And I think Nikola Jokic is one of those players that doesn't necessarily get the shine that he deserves. I do agree with you guys with Damian Lillard. He's another player that I think is a great player, but doesn't necessarily get the MVP nods that he should, because he's on a team like Portland, and Portland isn't really a team in the top 2 or top 3 in the Western Conference. I think the same goes with Nikola Jokic. I just think that what Nikola Jokic does has a bigger impact than somebody like Damian Lillard. It's very small, though. They're very close, but I got Nikola. But those are my top 5.
All right. So obviously I went first, so I'm going to finally get into mine. I'll be quick since a lot of mine are similar to yours. Obviously LeBron James, number 1, been doing it since he came into the league up until this point, 36 years old. Arguably, I know Kyle already put this video out a couple of months ago, if not almost a year ago already, that Braun versus MJ debate. Like I said, arguably the greatest player of all time, LeBron James, has been doing it at a consistent pace, at a clip in which we've never seen before. Probably one of the most electrifying players, game-changing players we have ever seen and ever watched in our lifetime, aside from like Kobe Bryant. And for those of you that are a little bit older than Kyle and I, Michael Jordan, you would have seen the tail end of Michael. It's just, I hated him for so long. Obviously, I had my own personal reasons to not liking him as an individual and on the court. But to watch him do this, I mean, like day in and day out, game and game, postseason after postseason, finals after finals, like watching that stretch of Braun in the finals against Golden State. Yes, he only won one of them, but his averages in that finals were damn near triple doubles. And I mean, like fractions away from triple doubles with over 30 something points per game in that whole series. So, I mean, LeBron James, by far, even at 36, is still the greatest player in this league right now. Number two, Kevin Durant. I've loved Kevin since he came out of Texas in 07. What was it, 07, 08, something like that? Him and Greg Oden?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So, I mean, just watching somebody at 6'11", 7 feet with sneakers, whatever it is you want to call them, whatever measurement you want to take on the day, to be able to pull up, be as explosive, and like Kyle said, off the dribble, actually use some of his handles at that point, pull up wherever you have to. I know a lot of times after games, he said he emulated Dirk Nowitzki because he saw a big be able to shoot at a consistent clip like Dirk Nowitzki did in his career. But Kevin, obviously being more athletic, more agile, he just took that whole persona of big men can't shoot. And at 6'11", he played the three for the majority of his career, and he lit it up. And like Kyle said, if LeBron wasn't in the league, Kevin would have been doing it for quite some time already. Him coming off of an Achilles injury to still basically be the exact same type of player that he has been his entire career at 32? Kevin's also in his 30s. So he's just cooking at a clip. Like Dawson said, 52% from the field, 43% from the three-point line. Granted, he's been a close contact exposure due to COVID about 2 or 3 times already. He's now battling a hamstring injury. But I mean, Kevin Durant himself as a player can literally take, I can't believe, almost 2 years off and still cook the way he's been cooking. So he has to stay at number 2 for me because of just how dominant and how consistent he's been. And despite this injury, he's still doing what he's got to do. At number 3, James Harden. Like Kyle said, since the transition over to Brooklyn, I hated how he kind of handled that whole situation of being traded out of Houston. I thought he was a diva for it. I will disagree with Kyle to the point of him saying he's the greatest scorer we've ever seen. He can kiss my ass.
I didn't say that.
You said he was one of the greatest scorers we've ever seen
of this generation.
Yeah, as I said, we this generation.
Yeah, he is.
We didn't watch Michael. We were too young. We saw Kobe. We didn't see people that were electrified. We didn't see Wilt averaging 39. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm saying in general. I just disagree. When you put up a volume of shots that Harden does, when you go to the free throw line as much as Harden does, and a lot of times we do know that Harden does like to do that run, swipe, and up kind of maneuver, and it's smart. You got to finesse the system, find a way to get your team to score, find a way to get into a rhythm. I understand that. But my problem with James on the scoring aspect is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. In his mind is if I'm 0 for 11, I'm still going to keep shooting. And in the NBA, it doesn't work like that because you hinder your team. And the big portion of that reality was when they were playing against, Golden State in that Game 7 match. And they shot like, I don't know how many threes consecutively they missed. He missed like 17 total threes or something. It was ridiculous.
It was like 30 that they missed.
I want to say it was 27, I think.
Yeah, the most consecutive missed 3-point attempts just by the Rockets in that game.
Yeah.
But the point is, James wasn't making it any easier. James was not trying to say change it up, attack the basket. We do know that James is a very dynamic player when it comes to shifting his weight and him being one of the more prolific Euro steppers we've ever seen out there, other than Manu Ginobili and such. James Harden is definitely one of the better scorers we have at this moment, and that we have seen. But Kevin Durant is the greatest scorer in the world ever because he does it with ease whenever he wants at all times. There's no question. Kevin knows that, all right, my jumper ain't on. I'm going to cook you off my dribble. All right, I can't cook you off the dribble. I'm going to put you in the post. He's a walking mismatch for the rest of his life. And even at 50, he's going to drop buckets somewhere in the world. That he's just absolutely stunning, absolutely incredible. Like I said, James is 3. But James is 3 because of how he is carrying Brooklyn, even without his 2 running mates. He is still continuing to be a consistent scorer in the league while at the same time facilitating. We all thought that how were these 3-headed monsters of Kyrie, Kevin, and Harden going to get along? Or who's going to take the last shot? Who's going to score the most points? He's showing that he doesn't even need to score that much because he can facilitate a lot. And like Dawson said, what is it, 25, 8, and 11? I'm almost positive. You know what I'm saying? I'm going off memory, but I'm pretty sure that's what you said.
Yeah.
So we're two rebounds shy of a triple-double for someone that just got to this team this season, and he's just putting up astronomical numbers. I believe he's the first player in NBA history to go 40, 15, and 15. Are you kidding me right now? Like, what? Who does that? So James Harden, definitely number 3 for me. Number 4, I have to put Wardell Curry, because this man has shown after he broke his hand, that team went from probably one of the greatest dynasties that this generation has seen, arguably one of the greatest dynasties that the NBA has ever seen, to picking second overall in the draft. I mean, if that's not an absolute plummet, I don't know what is. It's not a step down or 2 steps. They went from the best to the worst real quick. And Steph this season, with pretty much that same roster, aside from the acquisition or the drafting of James Wiseman and the bringing on of Kelly Oubre, has been pretty much poop without Steph. And Steph's averaging damn near 30 points a game, and he is absolutely carrying this team to relevance. They have dropped out of the playoff seed as of right this second. Dallas transitioned into 7th last night with our win, and San Antonio fell to 8th, so Golden State's right behind them. But for this team with this roster to be in the position that they're in, to even compete in the West, is absolutely insane. The man scored over 50, I believe, 3 times this season already, and one of them was against us, so I watched that whole game, and to see him just, it looked like he didn't skip a beat. Granted, it wasn't a lower leg injury. It wasn't an Achilles injury. A broken hand is relatively easy to come back from, in terms of just making sure that your hand is fully healed. But right now he's dealing with a tailbone injury, and we saw that it looked a little silly in terms of the replay, but it goes to show you can get hurt pretty much doing anything. And Golden State hasn't been doing exactly great without him. But Steph Curry just showed, even with a year off, even with a whole new team, even with scrubs, he's still going to go out there. He's going to do what he has to do and will them to win, similar to Damian Lillard. But that transitions into my 5th pick, which is Damian Lillard, because like Dawson said, he's been getting the attention all of these years, but he hasn't gotten the spotlight. It's been Dame time. It's been Logo Lillard. It's been Portland is a bottom tier seeded team. They're just relevant because of him. Him and CJ McCollum, like Dawson also said, are probably one of the better tandems in the league. They're just a walking mismatch on defense because they're undersized. CJ's like 6'2", 6'3", Dame's like 6'2", 6'3". Obviously a lot of these bigger guards on the pick and roll, you switch. I could even be wrong on the height aspect of it. You don't quote me on that, but they're 2 of the shorter guards in the league. They're 2 of the better scorers. But back to Damian Lillard. I mean, last year in the bubble really solidified it for me, because I forget who it was that disrespected him. I think it was Skip Bayless. He said something off to Dame, and Dame snapped. And it was, of course, for whatever reason, when people piss players off, it has to fucking be against the Mavericks. I don't know what it is, but it's always like you say some stupid ass shit, and then it turns into, the Mavs got blown up by 50 by somebody. And what did Dame do? He dropped like 53 points, and he solidified Portland going into the postseason with the 8th seed. It was ridiculous. He was a man on a mission. Also similar to what Dawson said, I'm just doing a lot of reiterations right now. He's probably one of the best pick and roll players in the game, because he knows exactly what to do and when to do it. He knows when he's coming off that screen to pull up immediately as the guard is coming over, as the center's trying to recover, he's going to draw the foul. He knows if he takes a little hesitation dribble, they're going to jump. He's going to go around. He's either going to dish it down low on the roll, or he's going to go up strong and finish up. His range is similar, if not the exact same, as Steph Curry's, because this man in the All-Star game pulled up from basically half court just like Steph did. So there is no limitation to the man's scoring ability either. But what motivates me to pick this is because he's averaging 30. Portland is in a better position than they have been in some time. I believe they're 6th right now, or 5th.
They're
something like that.
They're 6th.
Because Denver slid back up, right? Okay, so they're not better than what they have been in some time. They're pretty much in the same consistent basis. But Melo's playing great. CJ's coming back off of injury, and Portland is just playing at a very efficient way. And that's all in thanks to Damian Lillard literally carrying the weight of this organization on his shoulders since he's gotten into the league. And let's not front, he's one of the clutchest shooters in the game right now that isn't Steph or that isn't Kyrie Irving, because we all saw the step back against Paul George. We all saw what he does when it becomes Dame time. We all saw what he did in the bubble. And it goes to show, when you piss him off, he's only going to play better. And he deserves to be in this top rankings, because this is a year for Dame to actually get some votes. And I think he rightfully deserves it, man. But that's my top 5.
That's a good list. You guys have really good lists, just to be 100% honest with you. And
yours is good too. What?
It's just
like
like
we're
like
all
by,
pretty
by
similar.
and large, like we have basically like 4 out of the 5 players. It's just really kind of the
Yeah.
last. It comes down to maybe like the last spot at the number 5 where we may disagree. I went with a big with Nikola Jokic simply because I think just the way that I look at Nikola Jokic with the way that that 5 spot is now beginning to catch up with the rest of the league, Nikola Jokic is the reason why. I think with Damian Lillard, granted, he's been great, but I think in large part, he has, this is very difficult for me to say. It's, you guys can dunk on me when it comes to saying this. I think the way that Damian has played, I think to somewhat, he's riding the coattails off of what Steph Curry's done. Now, granted, they've been playing, Damian's been phenomenal, especially the last couple of years. But I think Steph was the guy that pushed that position to where it is now. And I think Damian is one of the beneficiaries of that. That's how I kind of see it. That's why I didn't have Damian in my list. It's just because I see what Nikola Jokic is doing for the 5 spot. Granted, Damian's been a great player. Lillard's been outstanding. It's just that the impact that Damian has brought, I think, is in large part a secondary impact of what Steph has done. Steph was the guy that pushed that position forward to where it is now. That's the really detailed distinction between why I have Nikola Jokic at number 5 compared to Damian Lillard.
Well, we would all know Steph changed the sport of basketball forever.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, you're seeing kids from as young as middle school to AAU to high school. The biggest thing now is to hit a 3 and turn around and walk away and you're cool as shit, or to pull away from 30 rather than go after a layup on a mismatch. It's he in a lot of people's minds. Actually, my friends are on their way here. If Ricky would have been here, to Ricky, Steph ruined the game of basketball. And in part, I do partially agree with him because, like I just said, you're encouraging people to just shoot. Basketball is so much more than jump shots. There are just some people like myself that can't fucking shoot. That doesn't mean I'm going to pull up 15 times because Steph's doing it, but kids are seeing it. Kids are seeing other players like Lillard doing it, and players like Kevin Durant and James Harden, and they're saying, oh, volume shooters, that's the way to get better. I just got to get a jump shot. And to an extent, yes, it is a very good craft to have. It's a good arsenal in your utility belt to have, be able to shoot the basketball consistently. But at the pace that these players are at this point in the game that are doing it, when Steph started to change that and he became the 3-point specialist, is going to shatter Ray Allen's record really soon. But it's the point of Steph changed the whole aspect of the game. And in large, Golden State is why the 5 spot has kind of phased its way out, because they were kind of the one of the first organizations to start running that small ball death lineup with Draymond at 6'8" at the 5. And everyone's kind of eliminated that aspect. Everyone wants that two-way big, or that big that can stretch the floor, or that big that can guard like Bam Adebayo, so to speak, and still play defense at the rim. So, I mean, Steph Curry is literally, if you put Steph on on a map, the things that have trickled off or put him at the top of the tree, the things that have resulted because of his play are incredible. And he's one of the most impactful players in sports because he legitimately changed how basketball is nowadays. And it's just insane.